In this video, we're going to look specifically at how to solve linear inequalities. Well, the first thing we need to look at is how we write the solutions to our inequalities, and those will always be written in what's called interval notation. It's a special way that we characterize our inequalities, and it tells us our directions. The biggest thing that we need to remember when thinking about your interval notation is the fact that you will either use your parenthesis or a bracket or a potential combination of both. By combination of both, we're talking you may start one with a parenthesis and end with a bracket, or you could start with a bracket and end with a parenthesis. Okay, so either of those are perfectly acceptable. Now, how do you know if you're supposed to use parentheses or brackets? Well, that comes from your inequality. If your inequality has the equals or the solid little bar underneath your inequality sign, then you're going to use brackets. If it's missing, like in this one here where there's no solid bar underneath it, or if you're talking about your infinities, then you'll use parentheses. Okay? So for example, if you're given the inequality where x is less than or equal to 3, first you would graph it. Some important pieces of information that you want to remember about your graph. On the right hand side is going to be your positive infinity. On the left hand side is going to be your negative. Somewhere in the middle here is going to be 0, and right where you're wanting your point to cross is going to be your boundary or your inequality value. Okay? So again, here we have x is greater than 4, so it's the same thing. On this left hand side you have the negative infinity. The right hand side is the positive. Somewhere in the middle would be your 0 point, and your boundary is going to be the given point, 4. Now, in order to graph, you're going to shade in the same direction as your interval. So notice my interval is going from negative infinity to 3. 3 has a bracket, so my graph has a bracket. On the other one, I'm going from 4 to positive infinity. 4 is not included, it has a parenthesis, so my graph has a parenthesis. So when we're solving, we have to employ or use the exact same ideas that we use when solving straight linear equations, meaning you need to get your variable to one side of the equation and all of your numbers or constants over to the other. Now, when you are multiplying or dividing, so this point right here is one of the most important points when dealing with inequalities. To multiply or divide both sides by a negative, so notice we're prefacing this with it has to be a negative number, then you are going to change the direction of your inequality, or in layman's terms, flip it. Flip the direction. Okay? So I've got a couple examples here that will help clear some inequality confusion up, so let's go ahead and get to those. So first and foremost, the question says to solve the inequality and to write the solution using interval notation and graph the solution on a number line. So the first thing I need to do is move everything to one side of the equation. So I'm going to go ahead and take my 3x here and I'm going to move it. Because it's positive, to move says I have to subtract. So this is going to be negative 1 is greater than 6x minus 3x is a 3x plus 5. I'm going to take my 5 here and move it to the other side. Because it's positive, again I have to subtract. Negative 1 minus 5 is going to give me a negative 6 is greater than a 3x. I have to divide everything by a 3. Notice the 3 is positive, therefore my sign stays the same. And what I end up getting here is I end up getting that negative 2 is greater than my x. So now that you have your inequality, the first thing I would do is graph it. And the reason for that is because your interval should match your graph. So graph it first. Put your 0 in the center. You've got negative infinity on the left. You've got positive infinity on the right. We're dealing with negative 2. So I would put in my negative 2. And then we need to look at what's going on. Well, negative 2 is supposed to be the biggest value, and it's not included. So this means parenthesis, and we're going to open that parenthesis towards my negative infinity. So then we're simply going to shade down in that negative direction. We want the interval to match the graph. So we're going to start at negative infinity. We're going to travel up to negative 2, close it with a parenthesis, and there you have it, my interval notation. Alright, let's do it one more time. So here, what's different about this one is we have fractions. So the first thing that we need to do with fractions is we need to identify your LCD. I have a 6, a 4, and a 3. So in this case, my least common denominator is going to be 12. Now, when in doubt, just simply find a common denominator by multiplying them all together and use that value. Here, my least common is going to be 12, so I'm going to go ahead and take that 12 and I'm going to multiply it to the entire equation. So this is negative 5, 6x is less than or equal to my 3/4 plus 8/3 x. So I'm going to do each part individually. 12 over 6 is going to become a 2. So this is going to be negative 5 times 2x. I'm going to leave my sign alone. 12 over 4 becomes a 3, so this is 3 times 3. 12 over 3 is a 4, so this becomes 4 times my 8x. Negative 5 times 2 is a negative 10x. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 8 is going to be 32x. And now I need to get everything combined. So I'm going to go ahead and take this 32 and move it. And I'm doing this for a reason. Negative 10 minus 32 is going to give me a negative 42x less than or equal to 9. Now, I did this on purpose because right here I am going to divide by a negative. So this means I need to flip the sign. So this is going to become x is now greater than or equal to negative 9 over 42. I can reduce this. So this is going to become that x is greater than or equal to negative 3 over 14. Now, just like before, we can graph it. Put in your negative infinity, your positive, plop in your 0. I've got 3 over 14, so I'm going to go ahead and do my negative 3 over 14. My x is going to be bigger than or equal to it, so that means bracket, and it also means I'm going to open it to my positive side, and I'm going to shade in that direction. I want to make sure that my interval matches my graph, so again, I'm going to open it at my negative 3 over 14, and I'm traveling up to my positive infinity. So, that is essentially, in a nutshell, everything you need to know to get started with being able to graph linear inequalities. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you have extra examples that you would like to see, let me know those too. I would be more than happy to work them out for you. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I will see you next time.